Hi all, welcome back to my channel. So in continuation to the previous video that was released yesterday, today we would be moving towards the practical implementation after what we discussed yesterday was the architecture of the test suite and test manager and all the components that are there in test suite and the test manager. Today we would walk forward towards the practical implementation of how all of these components are linked together, the test manager, the UiPath Studio, then the orchestrator triggering of test sets, test queues and schedules. And then we would run some test cases and see how everything is displayed on the dashboard and why is it beneficial to use test manager. So without further ado, let's quickly get started with the video. So the first and foremost thing that you should be doing is you'll have to create a new project here. Okay, so I'll name it demo UiPath test manager. I'll also have to give a short prefix. So I'll name it, say, TM, which is test manager, and I'll click on create. Okay, it has to be minimum 3 letters. So I'll name it, say, what should I name it? I'll name it demo. And I'll go on creating it. Once I create this thing, so from here I can select if I want to toggle between the different test projects. So here I have these options. So this is my dashboard wherein I can get a glance of all the test cases I've executed till date and how is it doing. Then I have requirements. So I can create a requirement. I'll have to give a name of the requirement, say test RPA. I can introduce some label as well. Say I'll introduce fill form label. And similarly, I can go on creating the label, which would help me identify what the requirement is for. And now that I've created this, I have an option to document it. So I can add documents, which is I can upload any documents that I want to. And other than that, as of now, I do not have any test cases, as you can see. Okay. And from here, what I can do, I can assign new test cases, but because I do not have any test cases created, I'll not be able to assign. So either I click on test cases and create it from here, I create on test cases, or what I can do, I can simply assign it directly from here. That I go to task and I assign a new test case, okay, which I'll name, say, test RPA _1. So I've created a test case. I'll click on create. Okay, so now if I go on overview, I'll be able to see that particular test case that I just created. It was assigned. You can see, it is assigned here. Now, if I go to test case, I'll be able to view the test case that I just created. Then I have test set. I'll also have to create it. What I can do, I can directly link the orchestrator test set also. Okay, or I can create a new test set. Okay. So I have one RPA test set already created. This one that I created for another project is available here, but I'll go on creating a new test set, or I'll name it demo test set. And I'll click on create. So once I do this demo test set, I'll also have to link my test cases to it. Okay. So if I go to task, I'll assign test cases. I'll get the one that I just created, test RP _1. So I'll select it and I'll assign it. Now I've assigned my test cases to my test set. So suppose if I have, say, 3 test set, I have one for login, I have one for upload documents, and I have one for download documents. So all the test cases that are related to login, I'll assign to one particular test set. All the test cases that I've created for upload documents will be assigned to another test set. So I'll have to make it logical that if I've created a test set with a name, say login, so all the test cases that are actually checking the login functionality have to be assigned to this particular test set. And test result is when I execute a particular test case. Now coming back to Studio, what I'll have to do, I'll have to also assign or link my Studio to the test manager. Okay. So it is the same process that we saw in the previous video. The only difference is that I have not selected a process type. I have selected a test case type. So my entry is test case.xaml, and I do not see here main.xaml. Okay. So this is my entry thing. Okay, so you can see it has given when and then. Okay, so if I go to test case, the first thing what I can do is I'll remove the test data as of now. Okay, I'll go here to task manager, test manager settings, and I'll connect it to my test manager instance. So this is my test manager instance and I'll connect to it. Okay, so I'll say, okay, open your UiPath Studio. So it is checking the connection and now it is connected. Once it is connected, I would probably get all the default projects here listed down. So see, it's loading the data. My thing is named as Demo UiPath Test Manager. So I'll select my default project and I'll click on OK. So now my studio is already connected to my test manager. Now what I can do, I can, first of all, the first thing is you'll have to make it publishable so that whatever test case you publish also goes to the test manager or the orchestrator. So I'll set it as publishable. And then I can also add test data. So I'll add a test data. So I'll add a file and this, so I'll add challenge. So it actually has 3 test sets or test cases, you can say, that I want to test on. I'll import it. Okay. So now these are also actually available in orchestrator. Okay. So if I publish this particular process, I actually have it already published, but I'll update it. Okay. So what you have to do in orchestrator, you have to create a process the same way that you follow, you can say, for any process that you publish a package, then you create a process. So the same thing has to be followed, the exact same thing. I created a process for testing automation project. And it is very important that you have a testing robot license. You should have a testing license. So if I search my test automation project, okay, I think I did not publish it to orchestrator tenant process feed. I'll again click on publish and I'll publish it. So it's 7220. Let's click on refresh to see if it is okay. It's not coming here. I'll go to packages. I'll upload this particular file. I'll publish it again as custom and upload that NuGet package. Okay, instead of having this typical name, I'll name it 2.0 and I'll go on publishing it to custom, and then later on I'll upload the NuGet package. I'll store the NuGet package here on my desktop. I'll click on publish, go back here, upload the NuGet package file. So I have it on desktop. So here is my test automation NuGet package. I would like to see which processes are upgraded. So, okay, no process found for upgrading. I think then the name is different. No issues. I'll create a process. I'll upload the test automation project 2.0. See, the version is here. 2.0.0 is the one that we published just now. And we'll go on creating it. A testing process already exists for this package. See, as I told you that I did create a process for it. Okay, let's go back and see. Test automation project. Okay, so it is already upgraded. 2.0.0 is the one that we just published. Then what we can do, we can go to testing here. So this is the RPA test set that we created. Then we have test cases also. So 1.0 was 2 hours ago, and then I again upgraded a version, which is 2.0 version a minute ago. Okay. So, and then we also have test execution. So this was a manual run given by me. We can also schedule it that when do we want that particular thing to run. So we have test schedules also that we can create. And this is an automated run that you schedule it and at that particular time it will run. Now, from test cases, I do have an option that I can execute it. So I'll simply go on executing it. I'll click on execute. What it would do is that as of now, the execution has been queued, now started running. So one by one, it will execute all the 3 test cases. Okay. So it would execute and then it will show me that whether the test case was passed or it was failed. Okay. So we'll just wait on to it. Let it finish. So I think it is now executing the last test case. Round 3. So I think now it is finished. Okay, this is round 3. Now that it is able to fill, all the, you can say, fields with no error, we'll go and see what are the test results. So if we go here, you can see test case 1 passed, test case 2 passed, and test case 3 passed. Coverage we did not enable, so we cannot see that whether the coverage is here or not, because when you actually add test set, you have an option that you want to enable coverage calculation or not. If you enable the coverage calculation, then it will also show you this particular thing, that how much activity coverage was there. Okay, so suppose if I create coverage test, so I've enabled the coverage calculation as well. I will select that which particular automation project and which version I want to include, and I'll go on next. Then I'll actually select my test case as well, and then I'll click on create. So now I'll have 2 test sets. One is the coverage test and the other one is the normal. Now, if I actually go on testing this particular coverage test set, so it will also check for my this thing, that what was the activity coverage. So if you go to execution, you can see this test case was also passed 2 minutes ago. Then we also have test data queues. What you can do is you can also go on with the queue thing. So you'll have to define the schema. So suppose in my case, the schema, you'll have to upload a key value pair, and my key value pair would be like this, that I'll have first name, last name, company name, address, phone number, role in company, email as key, and their value is the one that I provide here, which means their value would be the one that is provided in the Excel. Okay. In the similar way, then we can have queue and it would run on queue. So if we schedule it, the data is already in the queue and it will pick up the data one by one from the queue. And at the scheduled time, it will run the testing automation. Okay. Now you can also update it. So what you can do, either you can upload it in the queues and it will pick the queue item one by one and go on performing the test cases. Or from here also, if you update the test data, so I'll go to test cases, and if I want to actually update my test data, suppose now I want to update it. So I'll go on to file, I'll click on the test set and I'll select a different copy. Okay, so instead of all of this, I only want, say, this particular test case to be performed. Okay, so I'll import it. Now data successfully imported from challenge. You can now access this data in your test case via argument. That is okay, because that is how we have used it. Via arguments, we have used it. Now we have imported a new set of data. We have updated our test data. Okay. So if we go back to our test manager here, we can also link the testing thing that we have created there in our orchestrator to our test manager. So as you also saw in the PPT, there was an option that if you're using 20.10 orchestrator version or higher, you'll have that functionality to actually link it to the orchestrator as well. So now that we were talking about this linking thing, that we can actually link it to the orchestrator as well, or the test sets or the test cases or queues that we've created there. So for that, what you'll have to do, you'll have to go to test case and you'll have to link to test manager. You can type your project. You'll have to type your test, which is this demo2 test RP1, which you can see here, demo2 test RP1. So it is loading the data. Then you can also link the requirement as well. So the requirement that you've created here, test RP, I'll click on OK. So it is already associated with the test case, but we'll override the link. Okay. Now, if we go back here, we have a test set. So we'll go on linking it. So we'll link it to the coverage test that we just created. We'll click on link. Once we click on link, you can see it shows that one test case is associated. Because if you remember, over here, when we were actually again creating this test set, coverage test set, we linked it to one of the test cases present here. okay, which actually has the activity coverage also linked in. So if I go to test set, we created coverage test 13 minutes ago, and we actually linked one of the test cases, which is the new version 2.0 version, to that particular test set. So that would also be accessible here on the test manager. So we have this thing, but this particular thing linked. Now, if we click on this, we have an option of executing it manually or executing it automatically. So we'll click on executing it manually, and it has started the execution for coverage test. So you can see it is still running. Now I'll close this particular thing because I actually want one of my test cases to fail so that we can actually see that particular thing as well. So as of now, you can see it says running, 0 pass, 0 fails, and 3 not executed because it is still running in the background. If you look here, it is trying to run, job has started processing. And because every activity has kind of 30 seconds timeout, the default timeout, so it is still running as of now. So we'll just wait for it to complete, and then we'll be able to see the test results here. So you can see these two are finished because they ran 4 minutes and 10 minutes ago, but this particular thing is still running. Okay. So now it has started executing the other test case. The first one I think would have failed because I closed the browser intentionally. Now it is running with the second test case. So we'll see how it goes. And now that it has executed this particular one, it will go on executing the third test case. And after that, it will actually show us the result in the test manager. So we'll wait for this particular thing to complete, and then we'll go on and see what are the test cases, test results. So if we go back, we'll close these two. And if we go back here, by this time, this running thing would have changed. So I'll click on this particular test result. So you can see 2 passed and 1 failed. Okay. So the one that started earlier, the first test case, because I intentionally closed the browser, it failed. You can open the test case and also see what are the results and which one failed and which one not. You can go to the automation, you can see the studio project that is linked to this particular thing. If you want, you can even add manual steps. You can enter the description, say you said that enter name was the description. Then you can enter the expected behavior and you can add the clipboard data. Say you had to enter Jane Doe. Okay, and then you can click on new step. What would be the new step? Similarly, you can list down the entire manual step also, so that when you execute the process manually, this thing would be checked that whether all the manual steps that you laid down, it was executed the same way or not. So if you go to test results, click on the one that was executed a minute ago, which is this one. It was finished, 2 of the test cases were passed and 1 of it was failed, and the duration that it took to complete was here. Affected requirement is the requirement that we linked it to. So the requirement that we created named test RPA. You can see 1 failed and 2 passed. So this is how you can make use of this particular thing to actually connect your orchestrator testing and the test manager to effectively keep a track of what you are testing, how the testing is going. So you can see if you check for the daily update, you can see that 4 passed, 2 failed, 1 no result. 1 because it wasn't executed, then 2 failed and 4 were passed. So you can check everything is here. What is the automation rate? What was the total coverage? So if you remember the first test case that we ran, we did not enable the activity coverage. And later on, the test case that we ran later on a minute ago had the activity coverage enabled. So you can see 100% was the total coverage. If you have any block that was not tested, you'll be able to see here that, okay, 60% of activity coverage, which means you still have 40% block that is not being tested. So this is how you can make use of test manager to make your program or make your process 100% error free, so that each block of it has been tested thoroughly. I tested 1 manually and 2 automated. So you can even schedule it, automate the run from even the test manager or from the orchestrator, or you can even have manual runs. The one that I triggered manually was actually no result because it wasn't able to execute because I did not have manual steps laid down. Whereas when I say automated, which means it will run a process, a UiPath process behind it. And that is why it is automated. If you actually want to check something manually, you'll have to lay down manual steps with which it will validate that whether the manual steps that you have laid down has been executed or not. So that's all for this video. I hope this video helped you to give an overview of how the test suite and test manager works and how you can link your test manager settings to the orchestrator as well to make your program robust free. See you in the next video. Till then, stay tuned and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Happy learning.